In property management, it's very difficult to make everybody happy. You're either making the owner happy and the tenant mad, or the tenant happy and the owner mad. It's very hard to be in that middle ground to keep everybody satisfied.
I don't throw darts at a board. I bet on sure things. Read Sun Tzu, The Art of War. Every battle is won before it's ever fought. Think about it.
Hey, I just wrapped with Aaron Cooper. We talk shop about processes, tech, building a sustainable organization that allows you to move at a high speed without sacrificing your quality of life as the owner. Check it out. Welcome to another episode of the Profitable Property Management Podcast. Today I have Aaron Cooper on the show with me. Aaron, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We're just jumping right in here as usual. For those that don't know, tell us a little bit about your background. How did you get into the industry?
So I started as an investor, really. So my wife and I just took advantage of the foreclosure crunch, bought a bunch of foreclosures, and kept going from there. And then we decided, well, we don't really want to do this ourselves. So we got the great idea to open a property management company. Then I got my license. Then I became a property manager, and we took off from there and haven't looked back since.
Well, here we are. So let's fast forward to today. How many units are you managing? What are the asset classes? How many team members?
So we manage about 325 doors, something like that. We have a mixed kind of hybrid model. So we're 50-50 of local employees and remote. So we have about 5 remote and, including myself, 4 local.
So how long have you been in the game for?
About 7 years now.
How has your business evolved over those 7 years?
A lot. We started, just like everybody else, 10% here, and just copied, really. And then over the years, the first few years, I kind of learned what I liked as an investor and as a property manager. Like, I just learned that I did not like the lower tier of property management. It's just not my thing. I have friends that have made lots of money doing it. That's just not my thing. So we went to a flat rate, almost out of frustration, because everybody was clicking on my Google review or my Google AdWords for wanting quotes and everything. So I came up with the idea, let's just do a flat rate, advertise it. If your property's under $1,000, they won't click on my link. And it was a way of just filtering out the stuff that I wasn't interested in and wasting money. So, we've gone from there to now we have a 3-tier model, a lot of from you guys, actually, over the years, listening to you guys discuss different options and different ways of doing things. And it's been really successful for us. Pros and cons, obviously, right now, it's not a great with a rents skyrocketing right now. And so the percentage would be nice, but it keeps us just more even keel, very easy to budget, very easy to plan, very easy to forecast.
In terms of some of the shifts that you've seen in the industry, what's really been impactful in terms of innovation and change in your business over the last, let's say, 24 months specifically?
24 months. I mean, we dove into remote team members 3 years ago, and that's been just tremendous.
Was it great out of the gate? Did you have to cycle through a few before you found a winner?
No, I mean, my first one, I hired 2 basically at the same time. One of them was great, and she was just doing back-end accounting stuff. She's not here. My other one, Leo, was the other first person that we hired, and he's still with me, and he's like my right hand, and he actually has gone through everything from answering the phones is what he started with, just admin duties, and now he runs maintenance completely and has a team of remote employees that works with him, coordinating everything.
So remote, what else over the last couple of years?
BDM. Finally hired a BDM. Yeah, finally listened to you guys.
What did that feel like? You say listen, but at the same time, the reality is it's contextual. For some people, it's a fit. For some people, it's not. What lined up to put you in a position where you felt like it made sense now to pull the trigger? So
it was a unique situation. I was actually taking a look at an investment home to buy. And there was an agent there, and we got to talking about rentals and everything. And he was looking there to make it an Airbnb. And he's like, yeah, actually, my broker's getting ready to leave, closed up shop, and they had 30 or 40 properties. So I ended up acquiring those 30 or 40 properties. At the same time, their main property manager is now my BDM. So I kind of brought her in. That's what she was a BDM, really. And so we acquired that, and it just gave me the, I don't know, it was easy. It was the confidence, like, okay, I've got this new revenue stream of all these properties just overnight that paid for my BDM, the salary, and it gave me the confidence to be like, okay, let's take this plunge. And yeah, but since then I regret every day not doing it years before, because it's taken off my plate. That's what I did.
Yeah, that's a really interesting sentiment. You regret not doing it years before. For a lot of folks, when they hire a BDM, it can be a mixed bag. And when you think about the factors that correlate there to success, there's a couple of things that come to mind. One is having opportunity, i.e. lead flow. What did the marketing function, marketing pipeline flywheel look like at the point that you made this hire?
Yeah, so our marketing was nothing other than myself. Some Google AdWords. We just started getting into the SEO. We redid our website. My big plan was to really push for realtor referrals. That was going to be the target, going out to to their offices, visiting, networking, and about 2 months into it, COVID hit. So kind of changed everything. And so we actually looked with you guys with the Profit Coach stuff. And we got Angela involved in like Scale Club and all those fun things. And it's really helped us create our playbook, which is what I wanted, because I didn't know how to teach that. I just could do it. That's just what I did. I knew how to sell my company.
I love that anecdote.
Yeah.
The quote here is the strength of the owner is the weakness of the business.
Yeah.
That's a direct quote from Jeremy Pound, friend, former business partner.
Yep.
When you made those strategic investments, what were you expecting to get? I love that you made those investments, but what was in your mind's eye and what actually came of it?
Yeah. So, so for us, and me specifically, it was the accountability. A lot of it was the accountability and the teaching. I had no idea how to teach or train somebody to be a sales manager, BDM, metrics, performance. I know that's not my strong point. And that was part of my reservation of bringing on a BDM to start with, was I knew that was not going to be my strong point to oversee that and manage that. So by having, them help us and coach us through, and we started at the same time. We brought her on. We started with that and the training and building our playbook, and then we kept it going with the monthly calls for her, or the weekly calls for her, for the last year or so, until we kind of weaned ourselves off of it.
Yeah, I know that Renscale has a ton of appreciation for Angela. I've heard them sing her praises in particular.
Yeah.
So you have the BDM piece in place that's allowing you to kind of step back from that function a bit. What have you done with that marginal headspace? Where have you applied your focus?
So I am working my way into the background, really. I'm not one that wants to be the face of the company. I don't need my name out there. I don't want to be in the forefront. The company's the company. And I'm working to take steps back. Like, I actually enjoy, not because we're sitting here, but I actually like creating the processes and stuff like that in Lead Simple. Like, I actually have fun with that. I like that background stuff to kind of shape and build how and what the team is going to execute. So I just know that that's what I like. And so that's what I'm spending more and more time doing. And
that's a useful thing to like.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, every owner has their guilty pleasure. Mine, graphic design, believe it or not. I really enjoy it.
Yeah.
Is it a business priority? Is it a value? Is it a good use of my time? Not necessarily.
Yep.
Convenient that yours is processes. Yeah. That's a really value added.
I never realized that was something I would actually enjoy,
Really? So prior to implementing the workflow stuff with Lead Simple?
You can ask anybody on my team. Details are not my thing, but building out the general structure of it is what I like to do. Like, I can get what's in my head out.
Great. So I want to dive into this. This is fresh for you, the process implementation.
Yep.
What did you think was going to happen? What were you trying to get out of it? It's not enough to just say, well, we're going to use some tech. We're going to get some leverage. What was the specific outcome, and what's been required of you to get that outcome?
So for me, we tried like Trello and Asana and the different systems like that, and we experimented with them, and some work. They did well.
Yeah, there's a lot that can work.
Podio was one, which was just way over my head. It was the learning curve was just brutal for me. I mean, I tried, I actually implemented it and started building, and it's just too much of the building side of things. But what I liked about that system was putting my policies down. And when we first started, we had our little policy and procedure manual that gets dusted, and literally it's still sitting on one of my shelves. That's just how we work. We're a people game that the books don't really do well
It's
for us.
antiquated as soon as it's done.
Yeah. It was just a waste of time. So that was one of the things that I really liked that I did not like about Trello and some of the other options out there for the workflow was I can have the instructions, and then it kind of just parlayed with the remote team members and my own just controlling. I want to know that they know what they're doing and have the information in front of them as it comes up. And so that has been really, really helpful bringing somebody on.
What is this, if you could just be a little bit more specific, what exactly is the utility of having the context that you're referring to?
Yeah. So, just like lease renewals, let's just keep it simple. What the process is, the communications out to the owner, the communication out to the tenant, the timing of it, just keeping everything moving and having a process for them to actually follow instead of just what's in my head. So we have, the timing of everything is really the critical aspect, I think, for us.
What have been the lessons learned in terms of granularity? Some people get really wooden, very literal. Other folks keep it really high level. What's the right balance in your world?
You can definitely get too detailed with any of these process systems. It's just, if you get just into that level of detail, you just create more problems than you're solving, I think. So for me, I'm probably flirting with that line. I get pretty detailed into my processes, but at the same time, it's not too much where the staff can't, make their own judgment calls, and it gives the flexibility. So, I mean, for me, it was just trial and error. I would go through a process and kind of build it out and get it in my head. I'm like, okay, this is way too much. Like this is just too detailed. It's just too much. It would take too much time for them to read or go through all of this to actually execute what they need to be executing.
One of the classic laments is that my staff doesn't use it.
Yep.
I spent all this time.
Yep.
Somebody has the disposition like you have this beautiful thing, you've built the Sistine Chapel, and lo and behold, people would rather, eat at Arby's.
Yeah.
How do you handle that conversation at a high level in terms of motivation, and then the compliance piece?
So I think for me, we're really compliant. My staff does a really good job utilizing the tools, but a part of that was bringing them in on the initial stage of actually deciding if we were going to utilize it or not. In my head, I had already made the decision in my head, but again, if they were just adamant they hated it, we probably wouldn't have done it. But bringing them in that decision making, and that decision making, interviewing, the different process systems and the different, the features and testing it out, they chose it. They got to have some buy-in on that. And then the next stage of that is just the daily upkeep of it. And so what we do, we have a weekly meeting, staff meeting. And one of the aspects is we're looking at how many late tasks do you have in front of everybody. We sit there.
Leadership is attention. The things
right.
you focus on get done.
Yeah. So it's just nobody wants to be on that, I have 20
the
open tasks.
list.
Yeah, I'm usually the worst one. So, it's okay. There's and we're fine tuning it too. It's not the end all be all. If it's either late or it's not, we're still building it. We're still tweaking it. There's so much that I want to do with it. So,
I'm a numbers guy. My business profit coach is all about exposing the actual financial reality, stark, unvarnished from hope or aspiration. Yep. When you think on a financial level, the organizational impact that this has or could make, what is it?
For me, I know it can replace at least 1 to 2 full-time employees, remote teams.
Which is, there's a choice there. There's like an actual, just getting rid of someone, or there's the growing into that additional capacity without adding bodies.
So, and it's even more so for me that, we didn't lose anybody. It's just given us the bandwidth to actually bring on more. And this is the one thing that that I preach with my staff. The whole reason that we're automating and adding process and things like that is to provide us more time. And we should be providing more time with our owners or our tenants that need it. Not wasting our time firing off a routine email, but spending that extra time that we've gained in the customer service aspect. So I know everybody can get really bogged down into automate everything and remote everything, and it's very easy and it's very appealing as a business owner. It's like, I don't want to deal with that, but the whole idea that we always go back to and we talk about it a lot as a team, it's like we're doing this so that we can actually have the time to spend on critical situations or personal situations or the one-off crazy stuff that shows up in our world. So spend more time with the people, just more quality time with our owners or with our tenants or whatnot.
Let's talk about quality time with owners in particular. Different organizations have different philosophies around communication, format, cadence, etc. You've been in that seat. You are in that seat. In your mind, what is the most important thing to keep in mind when communicating with your owners?
Oh man, that's a good one. For us, it's the consistency, and we just try to constantly be the bearer of news. It may be good, it may be bad. When I usually get on the phone, they usually don't want to see my number. They usually know that it's not going to be good because I usually handle the fires, the floods and the insurance claims and things like that may be coming up. But just the consistency, I think, the owners want to have something they can depend on, rely on. So even just the communication about, okay, it's time to renew, we're starting the process. What is that process? But for us, I mean, that's, 300 emails, a year, or one a day about the same exact thing. So being able to automate that, auto trigger it, I don't forget, it automatically, Taylor, my leasing agent, she doesn't forget, it automatically fires and triggers. And so that's just given us the consistency with the owners, and it does keep them engaged a lot more.
So when you say consistency, totally makes sense. We think about just a standardized process where there's no surprises, expectations are managed, at least on that level. In terms of handling those fires, those calls that you're having to make, how do you deal with people in a state of peak emotional stress? This is one of the unique characteristics of this business. The possibility of dealing with someone that is screaming, somebody that is irate, it's more probable than in other industries, other businesses. How have you conditioned yourself and your staff to interact in those really volatile moments?
I feel like we're still small enough as a company we take it personally. We did have a house fire recently, and like a true house fire, like the house is gone pretty much, half the house is gone. That's not a pleasant phone call to make. But with the tenant or the owner, that whole situation, nobody was hurt or anything, but, just empathy, really, and actually truly meaning it, and having the time to go sit down, and even if it's not obviously a house fire, but something more simple, but just having it be in a more personal aspect for us is it's absolutely critical for an owner to have that trust in you too. Again, as a landlord for myself, I relate to owners a little bit easier, I think, than some. I mean, I know a lot of our brokers out here are investors and have it too, but I think that's really important and very helpful as well. I can give my firsthand advice because I've had some pretty bad stuff happen to homes and total of my own properties. And so I can relate too. And so I know what it's like, and discussing that, and then, but also having the confidence to go through the process with them, because a lot of these owners, the fire, for example, they're an out of country investor. No idea how an insurance policy or insurance claim works, but just getting on the initial call, this is what happened, everybody's good, here's what's next, having that confidence and the knowledge to just kind of outline, okay, these are the next steps, this is what we're going to look for, this is, we're going to make sure you have the rent loss protection in your insurance so your rent's covered, and just answering the questions before we get there. So I mean, if you mix the empathy with the confidence and knowledge of what actually needs to happen, and outline a timeline for them and give them the expectations, people are usually kind of go through the freak out and then chill out a little bit and understand and are pretty good with it.
That was a great answer.
Well, good.
How do you think about wealth creation generated via your management company? You have the awareness. You've clearly talked to folks at Profit Coach. You're thinking about profitability, which is a great step.
Yep.
There is a limit to the amount of cash flow that this kind of business can produce, and it's substantial. It's something that everybody should pursue. When you get to that point, you got to do something with the cash flow. You could try and reinvest it. Sometimes the business is not an appropriate vehicle. It can't provide the yield on the cash flow, and so you think about deploying those assets and resources elsewhere. How do you think about buying more properties, leaning into investing versus growing the management company?
So that's actually been a question I've been racking my brain with lately, just interacting with a lot of the brokers here at the conference. It's I don't know yet. I'm still debating that. Now, me and my wife, we are expanding our rental portfolio. We have we're in a pretty good position where owners come to us with a divorce or come with a death of a family member. They need out, or a crazy, terrible tenant that they had and we inherited the situation was a recent one, and I'll buy the property from them. I do it outside of my management company, but I've purchased several homes in the last year from the owners, either owner financing them or, just cash and then, BRRRR strategy it later on. But so my long-term wealth plan is to grow our investment portfolio more and more and more. And so I'm actually closing on the third property from an owner, hopefully Monday. It's a sixplex. And so we're kind of scaling up that way, but, we're now that we've changed as a company in the last really 2 years. We really focused on profitability and really paying attention to that and NARPM standards and really start benchmarking ourselves. So we're really just now getting into that. We also, had a huge price increase this last year. It was something needed to happen years ago. Like a 25% increase, not one person left. So that tells me it was not high enough. And so that has given us the ability to look. Like, I'm sitting here in the conference this week, I've been thinking about, like, okay, how am I going to market to realtors who are dabbling in property management? Because I would love to buy their portfolios. How do I get to that audience? So I would like to take the profits from the company to, I prefer to acquire some small portfolios. Yeah, I would like to. We did it once successfully. It worked out great. But it was luck of the draw. It was just dumb luck being at the right place at the right time. So I would like to deliberately find those types of opportunities. And with the changing real estate market and the realtor situation, and we'll see how that goes. I'm not really sure if there are going to be more realtors jumping into our industry and holding on to those, or if they're going to see the cash and go. From
where you sit currently, what's a unit count number that sounds like a place to be that you feel like you could, I don't know if maybe let off the gas a bit, but maybe it would be a satisfying scale to solve the type and flavor of organizational challenges that you're interested in solving?
So I think from gathering from all the people here and talking to everybody and kind of feeling out where the sweet spot is, it seems to be, for me, that 400 to 500 range. I don't think I want to get to a point where we're over that 500. I think it's not the size of the company I'm really looking for my long-term wealth and just income. I'm looking more to probably get into that 450 range and then start focusing on more profitability, more quality properties or quality owners even, really. And, as we grow, kind of let off some of the low-hanging fruit there that we don't necessarily want, or just difficult owners or properties or whatnot.
How do you draw those lines? What will you not do as a property manager? When do you say no?
What do you mean?
In terms of dealing with owner requests, scope of services, drawing some boundaries.
Yep. So we've redesigned our management agreement. We do that pretty much every year anyhow, but we've really, I guess I've gotten the confidence that we're at a position now that I don't necessarily need to deal with, the bad owner that's, constant phone calls, constant questioning everything, wants to have their say in every little thing, or, review the tenant application. We've gotten to the point, thank goodness, that we feel comfortable just like, no, this is not a good fit. We do fire our owners, pretty much every couple of months, if we have somebody, I flag them in our system that, yeah.
Do you outright fire? Do you do a fee increase?
Yeah. No, I just fire them. Just, I'll refer them out to somebody. The fee, we're a flat rate fee structure. So we have our 3 tiers. So it's kind of hard to say, yeah,
just for you.
Yeah, just for you, we're adding this fee. It's the
pain in the butt
pain
fee.
in the butt fee. Yeah, exactly. So usually it's just not a good fit, and I don't necessarily want to be in that kind of relationship with an owner or a tenant. If it's not a good fit, it's not a big deal.
There's somebody else for you.
Yeah, let's agree that this is just not a good relationship, and we can go our separate ways and not hate each other and be stuck with each other. We can separate and just say, yeah, it's not a good fit. No problem. We'll just go our separate ways and go about life, not worry about it.
How viable do you think flat fee is now? How do you deal with inflation?
Yeah.
This is kind of the great test. There was some novelty in this business model. Some of the arguments were it's simple. It's easy to understand. It's just dead obvious. You can't confuse it. Now with inflation, what would need to happen for you to rethink that approach?
Well, I mean, we just changed our fee structure. We just increased, just every tier just went up, about 20%. And I probably will plan on doing that every year at least review it, and definitely every 2 years. And I think it depends on too, your management companies, your average time with the customer. If they're only with you 2 years, 3 years, you're not really necessarily losing all that much revenue as long as you're adjusting your prices accordingly. So I plan to increase our pricing every 2 years. Absolutely. And
for existing or just for now?
Probably for everybody. So this March we gave notices in January that for all customers for the first time.
Oh, great.
Everybody's price changed.
Great. Tell me how that went. It's fresh.
Yeah, it was fine.
People just assume this is apocalyptic. It's going to be a meltdown.
I mean, we announced it in January. So this was before like all the crazy inflation talk started, so it wasn't like in response to necessarily all the media that we're seeing right now. It wasn't a knee-jerk situation. It was, I'm prepared to lose 5-10% of
attrition.
I'm prepared to lose that, but I'm raising more than offset the loss of revenue from those with less work.
Right. Totally fair trade.
Right. So we had planned it and put it all together, and new fee structure, we had already started it in January for all of our new customers, and I had just never taken the time, again, maybe had the courage to just say to the owners, hey, it's been great, but we're changing the rules. We had that right in our agreement, but I had never done that, so it was new for me, but we actually did not lose a single person.
You're factoring in 5 to 10% churn. Actual churn is zero.
Zero from that, yeah.
How much time and effort went into facilitating and launching that change?
More time stressing over the notice to the owners and how that conversation was going to go. But it wasn't that much. I mean, just once you get your fee structure, which we had already set up late last year for the new owners, and built our plan out, I probably would have gone a little bit higher, especially knowing now I didn't lose a single person. That tells me, and I even had some people saying, yeah, I've been waiting for you to do this. It's like, oh, okay, well, shame on me. I should have done this probably a year or two ago. Now knowing with all the inflation and everything changing and the rent, I mean, we're in Jacksonville, Florida, so we're in the spotlight right now with rent increases 20-30%. Mm-hmm. The flat rate is, not ideal, but during COVID, when everything was shut down and there was no rent, we're getting paid no matter what. So it gives us, our staff actually, we had this conversation a lot, they liked the fact that we were stable. We were a stable place to be. Maybe we're not seeing the spike in revenue as a percentage, which I definitely miss and wish I had more of, but we're doing great. So it's not that big of a deal. And it attracts the kinds of properties that we want. The higher costs rental homes come to us as a flat rate because it's cheaper, and those are just easier to manage. They're usually owners that take care of their homes. The tenants are usually easier. The maintenance is much easier. They're not older homes typically. So it's just it's a lot less workload, which is what I was kind of looking for when we went to that model.
What's your take on Turnkey? You have the investor background, you have the management background. Turnkey's interesting. In theory, it's some vertical integration. You do more, solve more problems, lower the bar. Turnkey is also notorious for being a disaster in many cases because you have a person that has one competence. They know management well, or they know financing well, or they know construction well. They don't know all three well.
Right.
What's your take on potential opportunities there and why it's not more common in our industry?
Do you mean like turnkey, like the turnkey investment companies, like buying and selling to, or purchasing?
Correct, and offering, a turnkey experience
Yeah.
where you sell me a home with the tenant
Right.
in it. And
So over the years, because what I've done is the rehabs, the distressed homes. We buy wholesaler homes. We buy the foreclosures when they were out there. So that's been I like doing that. It's fun. I think that's where the true wealth creation comes from, because you're getting the equity versus you're buying a turnkey rental property. They got the equity, they got the steal of the deal. And then they did the cheapest renovations possible because they're turning around and flipping it. So I don't personally like taking on those properties. And I tell owners, like, listen, it's a flip house. They're not here to build quality. They're here to make it look pretty. So we expect more repairs and renovations than we would if we were doing a flip. So I work with more owners and helping and coaching and teaching them to buy renovation homes. Let me renovate them. Let my team renovate them. And so we have a process for doing the turnovers, renovation projects. So we get a fee for that. And we control what's being done. So like a fire, like it's a $50,000 renovation. That's a little bit more than I like to see on a $100,000 house. But, it's well within our wheelhouse. We can do that all day long. And so I prefer, for my clients, for the investors, to buy a distressed home from a wholesaler or from, open market or wherever you're finding the distressed home from. You get the wealth from the equity of the sweat equity and the renovations, then leaving that to the flippers, basically.
so in this whole paradigm of REI, when you think about your own personal goals, back to kind of wealth management, wealth creation, what you're trying to achieve, what are you holding personally within your portfolio?
So we own a little bit of everything. So we have office condo. So we have about 20 doors right now. So we have everything from an office condo to vacation rentals down in the Keys to sixplex, quad, or sixplex, triplex, duplex, and single families, townhomes. So if it's a good deal, it's fine. Like, as long as we keep it to residential. The office condo is one little oddball. We too own it's called a docominium. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. It's basically a condo for your boat.
Okay.
So you can actually buy a condo for your boat to store it in. Taxes are nothing. There is no insurance, and there's not many of them. And down in South Florida, Keys, places like that are actually it's a unique little venture I've just kind of stepped into to see. So so we have everything from boat docks to sixplex, everything in between.
What's the asset class that you could see yourself leaning into hardest?
Probably I like townhomes for some reason. That's just what I'm drawn to, is simple, small, either attached single family. I don't get into the condos really, other than this one weird situation. So the townhomes, the small single family homes in decent areas, C-class types of properties is really kind of my wheelhouse. And they're hard to find because that is a lot of the first-time home buyer type of price point. Every hedge fund and is looking for those homes. So you're really competing with a lot. But again, the distressed homes in that small single family is what kind of my wheelhouse.
How would you argue that the property management company owner is uniquely positioned or more advantageously positioned to get into real estate investment than Joe 9 to 5 that has some extra cash?
Yeah, I mean, you have everything at your fingertips. I mean, the vendors, they do the jobs cheaper because they want that business from your management company. Everything costs a little bit less. You have access to the vendors. What you're going to get. They know who they're working with, and they know that it's just they give you better deals. They do better work. They do get better deals, and they do it faster. So from a repair renovation side of things, I mean, there is nobody else better. You're still tapped in with the realtors. Ideally you're getting referrals from realtors and have those relationships. And so you are getting those kinds of referrals or leads on a good deal or a distressed home that maybe is not something they really necessarily going to put on the MLS and then of course the wholesalers, same situation. You're just positioned in a spot where you're the central figure in all of these industries that all merge into the rental home. That is what we do, but all the other industries go through us. So to me, it's the perfect industry to be in, not to mention owners selling their rental homes. The sixplex, we've managed it for a year and a half. I know the tenants, they're great tenants. I know everything wrong with the building. I don't need to go in and do, in-depth inspections and guessing. I know exactly what I'm getting into. They need out of the situation. I'm happy to jump in this situation. And so you can align yourself in a lot of different ways with a lot of different opportunities.
What's the worst deal you've ever purchased?
Worst deal for myself?
Yeah.
Honestly, I've never lost money on a property, never even close. There's some I regretted. So for example, we bought a really, really bad duplex in a low-end part of town, and we paid 50 grand for it. I did most of the renovations myself back then. That's actually that particular house is what triggered the flat rate fee, because I got just sick and tired of the tenants complaining about, making up mold stories and this story and that story. It's just like, I don't want to deal with this anymore. And so I sold it, and we did basically a 1031 exchange, and bought our first vacation rental down in the Keys. This was 5 or 6 years ago. It was probably the only foreclosure in the Keys, but we were able to 1031. So we bought that house for $50,000 and just went. And that was a terrible situation. I hated it. I hated the house. I hated everything about it. I hated the renovation. It was miserable. That was probably the worst one, but that actually turned into fantastic opportunities with vacation rentals. So. That was probably the worst house, but it actually turned out fantastic.
Well, talk to me more about vacation rentals. Are you managing any short term?
No, I did. I managed my own. So I learned that it's a whole nother beast from what we do in single family long-term residential properties. And I know the short-term thing is a big sexy word right now, and everybody's trying to get into it. And there is money to be out there for sure. For me, I'm a little bit more calculated. And so I've had this conversation a couple times with people here at the conference. For me, all these vacation Airbnbs in the middle of mom and pop neighborhood are just, they don't make sense to me. There's no data on them if they're going to perform. Who's renting these things? Like there's nothing out there. And for me, I want to be more calculated, so my vacation rentals are in a vacation community. Like, it is very, reproducible. It's 80% of the homes are vacation rentals, and you have the cleaners are lined up, the handyman, they all know the game. That's the core business. And so it's very easy to predict what you're going to get, what you're going to make, occupancy levels, things like that. Whereas the Airbnb world that we're all talking about right now with just random houses in a cookie cutter neighborhood that people are renting on a daily basis as a hotel, it's like, how are you going to predict that? What is that actually going to look like? But I've seen people doing very well with it. For me, it's too much of the unknown to jump into that. But the management side of it is a whole nother beast.
What's the hardest part of your job?
Just dealing with people, in property management, it's very difficult to make everybody happy. You're either making the owner happy and the tenant mad, or the tenant happy and the owner mad. It's very hard to be in that middle ground to keep everybody satisfied. And when you do your job really well, it's like, you did your job. There's no, it's not much.
No congratulations.
No, it's just like, that's what you're supposed to do. And then when things go bad, it's the world, so it's and that's the part. I think that's why our industry does have a lot of stress, and it's a lot of turnover, and for our staff and brokers, owners as well. It's not for the faint of heart. It's stressful, and that's the part I don't enjoy is the the owners and tenants that dealing with those kind of fires. I don't think anybody likes to enjoy dealing with problems, but everybody's so different. Every situation's so different. We get ourselves into a lot of different situations, and it's hard to make everybody happy.
Back to systems and processes. Have you had any turnover since you've put these in place?
I haven't lost any employees. We just, so I built out my training process recently, and I got to experiment with it for the first kind of real run in real life with a real person, a new hire. And it was great. It actually cut down. I was actually leaving town as I hired the person. So I was able to just start the process, put them in, and I tweaked it a little bit as I went. But for the most part, those 3 or 4 days where, he was set on his training. The lead simple training tasks popped up that I kind of built and which videos I wanted them to watch. Propertyware training popped up as in sequence of what I wanted them to do and train on, the MLS stuff, and everything was just on autopilot. And they don't need me to tell them which videos and when to do it. Fair housing training stuff, how to log it in, how to, I don't need to be there. And I was in the Keys. And so, it was an easy transition, and I would give me the ability to be gone and not be chained to the office or to a computer for that matter.
If there was one thing that you could change about the industry, what would it be?
Yeah, I don't know. For me, the property management industry, the difficult aspect is maintenance is the hardest part, and tackling the whole maintenance side of property management, which to me is really like 70% of what we do. And there's not great integrations with the management software. I haven't found we use Property Meld. We like it. It works well. It's not the end all be all. Propertyware or management software definitely is not. AppFolio definitely is not. There really isn't a solution out there for us on the maintenance side that really everything ties into, the invoicing, the accounting, and the work orders with the property. There's nothing that really does that. So that's always a challenge for us right now.
Aaron, tell me a story. What's the craziest thing you've ever seen in property management?
Craziest story in property management? We've had some sad ones. We've had, deaths. We've had murders in A-class homes. So those aren't real...
A tenant getting murdered or murder?
Yeah. Boyfriend.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. So, those are they're crazy and they're sad and scary too for our industry. So those are the kind of situations that we all dread to ever come up and deal with. But we've seen everything from the fires are interesting. We had an e-cig start torch a house.
I thought e-cig is not...
Yeah, if you drop them against the wall, they can spark apparently and lit a backpack and torch the whole house.
So do you have a policy against no e-cig now?
Yeah, that's no e-cigs in the house.
It's basically treated as equivalent as a...
Yeah, but you can't police that. It's just in there to
Sure,
kind of cover
no way
ourselves.
to detect it.
We've gone with renter's insurance. We used to require, but now we provide the renter's insurance and through Propertyware, so that we can control that. So in situations like that, they did not have renter's insurance. Now situations that tenant cause accidents, the owners are protected a lot more. But yeah, all the crazy stuff is usually the tenant related. It's usually accidents, problems. We haven't had anything other than those couple, death situations and a suicide. The maintenance stuff is really where it comes from. The fires are my nightmares. We did had a flood back in the day where, by the time I got there, which we don't even really go to situations like this now, is when we first started, but a water line broke on the second floor and the entire house was flooded, and it was coming through every light fixture, every air conditioning vent to the first floor.
While you showed up, this was going on.
Yeah, they still hadn't gotten the water off yet, and they didn't know how. So we try to now teach people where the water shut-off valves are after that one. But yeah, that was a memorable walking into a home, just water pouring out of every crack in the property.
Wow.
Yeah, it was an expensive one.
Did they just tear it down to the studs?
Yeah, all the drywall. Yeah, all the drywall came out. Pretty much all the floors came out. We started over quite a bit, but everything's fixable in homes. enough money, enough insurance coverage. Anything's fixable. It's not the end of the world. So, and with rent loss protection, stuff like that, the owners are usually covered. And that's one of the things that we really coach with owners when these situations happen. It's like, it's all fixable. It's just a house. It's hard when was their personal family home or something like that. Of course, there's still the emotion attached to it. But if they're not living there, they've usually had some detachment. But yeah, the repairs and things like that with the owners, getting them to break that personal connection, it is fixable. It's just a house. We can
What
fix
kind
it.
of rent protection coverage policy do you advocate for, offer, et cetera?
Yeah, so right now we went from last year, after a small little tenant caused house fire, we pulled the trigger on Propertyware offers rent, basically tenant insurance through their system. So it's really a toggle on and off in the software, which is very easy for us. They can opt out of it. That's some Florida laws and stuff, but they can opt out of it. Nobody does, because it's part of our resident benefit package that we offer, and it's actually a benefit to the owner as well. And so it's through Propertyware system. It provides $100,000 of accidental tenant damage. So we had a situation recently where Lowe's refused to install the washing machine because of unknown reasons, but the tenant took it upon themselves to move the old washing machine and dumped a bunch of water all over the floor on the second floor. Again, comes through to the first floor. Accident, Lowe's didn't do their job. I don't blame the tenant for wanting a washing machine to finally get it installed and everything. But it caused several $1,000s, and insurance picked it up. The owner didn't have to file an insurance claim. It kicks in before the owner's insurance policy kicks in. So we didn't have to go through the renter or the owner's insurance. We handled it in-house basically through that insurance policy. So that's been a really, really nice feature. And it's a good sell for owners too, to know that they have that protection.
How do you sell the resident benefit package to the tenant? Very different conversations depending on who you're having it with.
Yeah, right now there isn't a sell. It's like, will you let me live in your house? Sure.
This is a
what it
condition of
costs.
that, sure.
Yeah, but that's really been our attitude with resident benefit packages from day one. This is what we do. We were probably the first, one of the first in our industry or in our market to start the resident benefit package. We've had it for, I think, 4 years now, something like that. Many of probably a third of the management companies in our market now offer it or require it. So it's becoming the norm. But again, with the apartment world, fees and things like that are normal. And so I feel like a lot of people, we really don't get any kickback on it.
Not a lot of pushback.
No, never have. Even 4 years ago when it wasn't really a thing, we really didn't see much pushback on that.
What are you reading right now? Who are you learning from these days?
Well, obviously here at the broker owner stuff, that's why I came here, is to kind of to network and just see what other people are doing. Honestly, I network with my competitors in my market. We're talking situations, problems, ideas, marketing. We have a pretty good network in our NARPM community.
Blakely's, the Steve-O's of the world.
Yep. So Blakely and I are pretty good friends, and we just brainstorm a lot together. So honestly, him specifically actually has probably been one of the biggest motivators for me to make changes, to do things differently, to think about things differently, see other ways of doing it in real life, in real action. But yeah, and I listened to a fair amount of the podcasts, and the broker conference. This is my first broker owner conference actually, so I've been really looking forward to getting here and being around these people. I talked to Matthew Tringali a lot, and more remote teams and things like that has get me motivated, and probably my next step will be the traction and implementing EOS and that whole fun world, because that's something we do not do well.
Been down that path.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good fruit there. I'm excited
a lot
for
of
you.
work. Yeah.
Excited for you to make that transition. I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And sharing your journey, brother.
I appreciate it, man.
Until next time.
All right.
Jordan here, asking you, what do you got? What is a question you want to ask me? Can you stump me? Can you throw me something hard, perplexing, vexing, something you feel tied up in knots with? Throw it at me. I'll do my best to try and answer that question, to dissect it, to parse out the nuance, and maybe help you get a bit more clarity. I'm looking for questions as the basis for creating content, and you're looking for answers as the basis for clarity. And wouldn't it be perfect if those two things matched up? Drop a comment, send me an email, jordan@leadsimple.com. Let's stay in the conversation. Peace.